What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, and we have got some squad overviews to do today. The window slammed shut last night at 11 o'clock. Me and my brother, just before the season started, brought you a squad overview, and we mentioned that there will be another one taking place just after the transfer window does close, and that is what we're bringing you today. And it's a bit of a twist this time, seeing as we've got our scores. So we're scoring each position out of 5, and we both got different scores as well, me and John. And yeah, let's see how we get on. We both haven't seen each other's scores, so this should be quite fun.
Should be interesting.
Yeah,
let's see what happens.
All right, so let's get into the first position, and that is the goalkeeping situation. Ooh, you went 3.5, I went 4. Brandon Austin, Golini, and Hugo Lloris. You want to go first on this one?
Yeah, the reason I went for 3.5 is because had this have been 2 or 3 seasons ago, I would have probably given a higher score, especially for Lloris. But I think this is probably Lloris's last season for us. So we already saw signs of that last season where you could see his game was slipping a little bit.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. There was a period of games where you could see that he was. And me and Sim, I think, had a hot spar about it, whether we should sell him or not. So you could see like the chinks in the armour appearing last season. I do think this is his last season for us. Golini's still a little bit untested. A little bit of an unknown quantity, and I think the third choice isn't that strong either. I think in the past we've had like Kudachini third choice, so we've had much stronger overall over the balance of all 3 goalies in the past. So I think this one for me, it's not particularly strong, but at the same time, you know, Lloris is still a good goalie. Golini looks good as well. So yeah, that's why I gave it 3.5.
In my opinion, I can't think of anyone in the Premier League that's got two strong keepers like Lloris, like a Golini. I can't really think if there's anyone that's got a better choice of 2 keepers than us. I think Golini is a fine choice as a substitute, and I'm backing him to take the number 1 jersey off Lloris next season. And in terms of Hugo Lloris, I think people massively underrate Hugo Lloris. I think he's an absolutely sensational keeper, to be honest, and I think he's up there. Yes, he has his flaws and has his mistakes like everyone else, but I think for some reason Hugo Lloris's mistakes get much more polarized than as opposed to like an Ederson or an Alisson, because you know Ederson and Alisson had his flaws last season, that's for sure. Ederson made some mistakes, so I think that they don't get marked down on their mistakes as much as Hugo Lloris, and I want to know why that is.
Yeah, but I can actually see Lloris's performances deteriorate over the years though. Whereas I don't think you see that with Ederson or Alisson. I think they're in their prime, you know. So for me, Lloris is slowing down a little bit. I think he lets a lot more shots in. He lets a lot more shots squirm, through his body than he used to. I don't think he's quite got that agility like he did in his 20s, in his prime. And yeah, he just doesn't have a big enough presence. But I don't think he's ever had that. But I know what you mean about his mistakes do get scrutinised a lot more maybe than some other goalkeepers. But I just think that he's coming to the end of his cycle with us.
He is, but he's still a top keeper.
Yeah, he's still a top keeper. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And like I said, like I don't know any other Premier League club. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but I don't think there is that has 2 keepers like Hugo Lloris, like Pierluigi Golini. Because you've got to remember, Golini was Atalanta's first choice keeper for the past 2 years, Champions League club as well. So yeah, and I've been very impressed when I've seen him so far. So yeah, I'm going to go for a 4. John's going to... Are you sticking with 3.5?
Of course.
Sticking with 3.5.
Are we still having it out to see if we can get the other one to...
Look, I want to know people's opinions on this in the comment section below. Put your scores out of 5 for the goalkeeping situation. I'm going 4. John's going 3.5. Let's move over to the left backs. Ben Davies, Sergio Reguilon, and Ryan Sessegnon.
You go first this time.
I went 3.5. You've gone 3. I'm already thinking of it should be 3, to be honest, because look, let's be honest, Reguilon, good left back, I'm happy with him as first choice. Ben Davies, I actually think Ben Davies is a good backup. I think he's a good backup. I think he fills in well. The problem with Ben Davies is when you overplay him. That's when you get the problems with Ben Davies. So I think that with Reguilon and Ben Davies, I think that's okay for a starter and a backup. Ryan Sessegnon's got the I think he's got the ceiling to improve. He's just not showing that on a base. He hasn't showed that at all for Tottenham, to be honest. And I think he's come with a bigger reputation, Ryan Sessegnon. We spent a lot of money on him, and I'm quite disappointed the way he's turned out so far. But on the flip side, he is young. There's definitely scope to improve, and if he keeps working hard, I think he will improve. I just think, like, for some reason it looks like on the pitch he lacks a massive amount of confidence. And I don't know what that's about, but he had a somewhat successful loan at Hoffenheim last season, so I do back him to do it at Spurs. But right now, when I'm assessing the situation, 3.5 because Reguilon is a very good first choice to have, gets up and down the pitch really well, and I think that his defensive game has improved this season already. And Ben Davies is a solid backup, no more than that.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's a solid backup. But I would say also that I think we're seeing like the end of Davies now with us. This could be his last season with us. I think he's always been the same, isn't he? Everyday Ben, you call him, average Ben, you know? He's just a backup. That's all he is. It's a little bit frustrating seeing him every year, still there. And then when he does get a string of games, he's like a little bit too negative on the ball. Obviously, Reguilon is a good player for us, very good. Started off the season last season like on fire. Then he had that little injury, and when he came back, I don't know, he just lost a bit of mojo. I think he was almost, playing too deep, was not committed enough to go forwards. I think that was partly because Jose was saying to him to hold back a little bit. I noticed
had a very poor second half season.
Yeah, but there is still question marks on his actual defending, if you know what I mean. We saw him get a little bit exposed by Sarr on the weekend, but I do think that he is a quality player, and I love the fact that he's at the club. And Sessegnon, for me, I really, honestly, if I'm being honest, I don't see a player there, and I think we've made a mistake with Sessegnon. I would love to see him develop. Exactly, I would love to see him develop, but I just don't see that raw talent. I don't even see the raw pace. I don't see anything, even like a young Danny Rose where he was coming through and he needed a few loan moves. I don't even see that kind of like that raw gem in him. I really hope I'm wrong on that one, but I just think Sessegnon, I don't think he's going to make it at the club, unfortunately. But I would love him to prove me wrong on that one. So that's why I gave it a 3. I think there's a lot to be, a lot to improve on that.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move over to the right backs. Emerson Royal, who obviously we just signed off Barcelona. Japhet Tanganga, who started every game this season, and Matt Doherty. John going for a 2.5. I'm going for a 3.5. I went for the same as the left backs, to be honest. But you, take this one away.
Okay. So Doherty for me is dreadful. I'm just going to say it outright. Dreadful, terrible signing. Maybe one of the worst signings we've ever made, if I'm being honest. I can't think of many worse players in a Spurs shirt.
Raziak.
Yeah.
Jonathan Blondell, Asimovic.
Yeah. He's up there. He's up there with those. I haven't seen one good performance from him the whole time he's been at Spurs. I think it's been a huge mistake. And then, so we're pinning our hopes on Tanganga, who last season, let's be honest, he was nowhere near the pecking order, was he?
Yeah, but he's a young player.
He's a young player coming through, but to put all our hopes on a young player to be our mainstay right back is, that's asking a lot, I think. And then
I don't think the hopes are on him, though. I think the hopes are on Emerson.
Well, that's the thing. So that's coming. Now I'm going to come on to Emerson. So that's still a little bit of a unknown quantity. He could be an Aurier 2.0 where he's even more clumsy and he's making even more mistakes, So until we actually see him play and bed down his performances, then we really don't know with him. So if that one doesn't go well, if the Emerson one doesn't go well, then we're pinning all our hopes on Doherty and a young Tanganga. So that's why I gave it sort of like a mid score for that, because I think it for me we're not very strong in that position.
It's hard to disagree with you, to be honest. It really is, and I think you're absolutely spot on what you say about Matt Doherty. I think he's bang average, isn't he? He's bang average, and he shouldn't be at a club like
that. And he's
us.
A gooner.
Yeah, that as well.
That's probably not to
point
going
down 1.5 now.
Yeah.
But look, Matt Doherty hasn't shown anything for me since joining Tottenham. And I think it's very telling when the manager that sold him to us sold him on a cheap deal, and he's here now with us, Nuno, and he can't get in the team now. Yeah. So I think that's very telling for Matt Doherty. So I think you're absolutely spot on about him. Japhet Tanganga, I think that he's shown a lot of promise so far this season. I think when he played last season, he showed... he's shown bits and pieces in the past couple of seasons, but this season I think he's really... That Man City performance for me was a bit of a coming-of-age performance from Japhet Tanganga, and I think that if he can carry on that trajectory, we do have a good... do have a good backup right back there, and I think he can challenge Emerson for that first team spot. And I think that it depends who we're playing against, because if we want to have a more of a defensive performance, I think you put Danganga there. If we want to go at teams, potentially we can put Emerson there to have a bit more of attacking outlet on that right hand side. But I think it worked really well having Tanganga there against Man City. And moving on to Emerson, I think it's the closest thing since we've got rid of them to having that dynamic duo of Kyle Walker and Danny Rose on the fullback. So I think that is definitely a step in the right direction. If we would have kept Aurier and not had Emerson, I would have probably gone for a 2. But I think seeing as we're getting Emerson through the door, seeing as Barcelona did bring him back into the fold this year, and they were planning to use him, but their money problems are kind of not letting that happen, I'm going to go for 3.5, and I'm going to put my faith into Emerson. I think he's going to be a good signing.
Yeah, let's see what happens, actually. You know, a lot of these are kind of we're having to preempt what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we're kind of like working based on their potential and what could happen. So this could all change by the end of the season, couldn't it, when we look back on this and reflect on it?
Agreed. Centre-back position. We've got 4 centre-backs: Joe Rodon, Cuti Romero, Davinson Sanchez and Eric Dyer. I've gone for a 3. You've gone for a 3.5. Wow, first time I've gone lower than you so far. I'll start with this one.
Yeah, go on.
The reason I've gone for 3 is I think that we might be a bit too short at centre-back. I think, 1 or 2 injuries and we could be looking really, really wafer thin there. I mean, I think we need maybe 5. 5 is probably where I'd be looking, 5 or 6. But I think when you're looking at the centre-backs, Davinson Sanchez and Dyer, all the Spurs fan base were looking to get rid of him. Getting rid of both of them at the end of last season, especially Eric Dyer. Joe Rodon can't get a look in for some reason. I don't know what the reason is. Romero, top centre-back in Serie A last season, fair enough. Jury is still massively out on Eric Dyer and Davinson Sanchez. So, yes, they've both had really strong starts to the season, but, like you keep mentioning, they had very strong starts to the season last year. So I think the jury is still massively out on those two. Rodon, it's very hard to judge because he's had good games in Welsh shirts that we've seen, but we've never seen him have a long extended period in the Spurs squad. So I think we're thin. Jury's out on 2 of them, so that's why I've gone for 3.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, it's not that far away, is it? I mean, from what I've got here, but with a 3.5. But I'm going on the understanding that Joe Rodon's going to come good and he's going to get into the side and he's going to show his mettle, I also think that as much as the jury's out with Dyer and Sanchez, and to be honest, I do want to see Dyer go at some point in the near future, I do. But at the moment, I'm also doing this a little bit on, you could say, current form as well. And the fact that we are solid, 3 clean sheets. And I think I've noticed a little bit of a difference in Sanchez this year as well. I think that he's really stepping up a little bit. I've noticed a little bit more in his passing range. We've seen these like Toby-esque pings that we haven't seen before. I think he's realising that he really has to step up now. And with Romero coming in as well, I think they're fighting for their place a little bit. Dyer, I haven't seen. He hasn't put really a foot wrong, apart from when he gave the ball away in Traore and nearly got through on that 1-on-1. But that was in the attacking half, of the opposition. So I can't give him too much flack for that. So I think that we've got 3 kind of okay defenders. Rodon could come good, and Romero could be a superb centre-back. We just don't know at this point. It's a bit of a punt. But on current form, how it's looking at the moment, with Rodon to come back, Romero to come in, who could be like another Toby, a prime Toby, or Vertonghen. We just don't know. I'm going to lean on the side of positivity on that one.
All right. Let's move over to midfielders, where we've given the exact same score. Brilliant. Let's first of all, Tanguy Ndombele. We've missed him out.
We've missed him out.
We've missed him out somehow, but we'll definitely be talking about him. So it's Tanguy Ndombele, Giovanni Lo Celso, Ollie Skipp, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Dele Alli, and Harry Winks.
Yeah.
You can start with this one.
Yeah, it's strong. We got Højbjerg, Le General, absolute leader, captain material. Had a great Euros. We bought him, and he was actually one of the ones I wasn't that excited about, but he's actually turned out to be the best signing of the window from last year. Absolute catch with Højbjerg. Love the guy. Then we've got Skip that's come back, had a great season with Norwich. I've always liked Skip, as you know. When we did the ratings before, I actually said, I prefer Skip to Winks, and that's when Winks was like, in the first team and doing really well. But I could still see a lot in Skip, and I still think he's got, he can develop even more. He could even be captain material in the future.
Yeah, I agree.
He's like a throwback to the 60s.
Mourinho said that.
What he said he could see him as a captain, did he? Yeah, I see that as well, definitely. Obviously, he's youth products as well, so he's got that loyalty as well about him. Lo Celso, great player. He can, when he's on his game, he can be world class. At the end of the 2019-20 season, he looked the best player by a mile for like the last stretch of games. It's just the only problem with him is he's a little bit injury prone. We've got Dele Alli, who was he was like
he was the golden boy.
He was the golden boy, absolute golden boy. And he's had to reinvent his game, and now he's doing a lot more of the donkey work in midfield. He's really sort of upped his dedication and work rate, and decided I'm going to really muck in now. And then we've got Winks as well, which you've always had my criticisms of Winks, but that's not a bad backup to bring in for like the cup games, the Euro games, the conference games, stuff like that. I think that's a pretty strong midfield. The only criticism I would say really is that we might struggle with goals with these players. Do you know what I mean?
Ndombele?
But with an Ndombele, I was going to say, we haven't got it on this graphic here, but if he wasn't in this, I might have knocked this down to like maybe a 3 or 3.5. But with Ndombele staying, I think with him in the team, that is an extremely strong midfield, extremely strong.
Yeah, I would agree, and I'll just go through them. So I'll start with Tanguy and Ndombele, and I think he's the one out of this midfield that really has the X factor. He's the one that can really take the game by the scruff of the neck, find something out of completely nothing. I mean, he seems to be 3 steps ahead of anyone on a football pitch, and that's why it's so important to get him playing. And a lot of people are talking about this creative burden in our squad at the moment. I think he's the answer to it. I believe he's the answer to it. And when you look at the other players, Giovanni Lo Celso, he's also a top quality player, but I think that injuries, that's what's really holding him back. Skip and Højbjerg, I think both of them have started the season brilliantly. Both of them have started where they've left off from last season, and it's hard to ask for 2 better central defensive midfielders than them two, especially with their mentality as well. And Dele Alli making a bit of a renaissance in a different position, also putting that dogged work, like you said, absolute sheer work rate on the football pitch at the moment, which you love to see. And Harry Winks, I think that everyone has their criticisms of Harry Winks, and I would have preferred to see him move on this summer, but now he's stayed. I think that he's okay as a backup. If he's like the last choice out of this lot, then I wouldn't mind too much.
Do you know what I'd love to see in our midfield? That if we could put in there a Gus Poyet, a goal-scoring midfielder.
That's what Dele Alli was.
Well, Dele Alli's never really, even when he was scoring goals, he was actually playing more as like a striker, like an auxiliary striker. Yeah. But I would love to see a kind of a centre mid, that like a Gus Poyet used to come late into the box, used to get loads of goals. Actually, our top goal scorer, I think, in 2001.
He was, yeah.
So if we had a goal-scoring midfielder in there, that would make it that would probably almost edge it to like a 4.55 for me. But at the moment, I think this is one of the strongest areas on the pitch for us.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move. Well, but we both give them 4. So the first time we're agreeing on a position. That's definitely moving on to the wingers. Ooh, 3.5 for me. 4.5.
So negative, aren't you these days?
4.5.
So negative.
Wow. 4.5. Go on, tell me why.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Son, how much do we have to talk about Son on this one? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would say, and I'm going to bring this up in the hot spar, he has faded quite a bit since the first half of last season. I noticed his game dropped around February this year, and he stopped really taking on his man and really dribbling past players. We haven't really seen it. We saw a glimpse of that against Watford, but we haven't really seen him hit the same heights he did beginning of last season. But let's just say that he'll get that back. Let's just say, for argument's sake, hypothetically, he gets that back.
Started the season really well. Do you not think?
Not like he did the beginning of last season.
No,
nowhere near.
He hasn't have Harry Kane.
He isn't committing the defenders as much as he was back then. He doesn't have that same electric qualities about him as he did last season. But let's just say he does get back to that heights. That's like a supreme player.
Correct.
One of the best in the league.
Yeah.
We've also got my favourite, Moura. I think he's the most underrated player at the club. I think when he plays, he does give the ball away and he does do silly things, but that's because he's taken so many risks to try and make things happen in very, very tight areas. And I think he makes a huge difference. Even if he comes on as an impact sub, I think he makes a huge difference. I actually think that he was our best player in the 2019-2020 season, personally. I know he frustrates some people, but I just think he frustrates people because he takes so many risks that he sometimes gives the ball away, where a lesser player would even take take the risk at all. And that's what I'm going to come on to Bergwijn. There's a player there where I can see so much potential in him. Silky skills, he's got the movement, he's got the pace, but his end product is missing at the moment. He seems like he's losing a lot of confidence in the final third. I think a lot of that came down to the Anfield game where he missed those 2 chances. But I think if he was to just scramble a ball in, get a couple of goals, and then start to really use his killer instinct in the final third, if he started to get 15 goals and then upwards 20 goals, something like that, he could turn it into a real supreme player as well. So then we're talking like 3 quality players here. Potentially, I would say Son's on that border of world class as well. Some people, it depends what your metric is, your measuring system for world class. But some would say he's banging world class. Some would say he's on the edge. But let's just say, argument's sake, he's world class. So you've got a world class player there. You've got 2 class players. And Hill, for me, this is also why I've given this quite a high score. That guy is going to be a superstar. I'm going to call it right now. That guy is unreal, and we've only seen him a little bit of him, right?
Against the Passos team.
No, but it's not. But it's not just about that. It's just his movement, just the touch, the desire, everything about him. I can see real star quality in him. So for me, that's why I gave it such a high score. I think that we've got some gems there, especially if Bergwijn takes off, then I think the 4.5 will be merited.
For me, I think we're kind of short in this position. I really wanted us to sign Adama Traore or another winger that could be more comparable to like Kane and Son and more on their level. I think that when I assessed Heung-min Son, I mean, what else can we say about Heung-min Son? This guy is absolutely unbelievable, world-class player, world-class talent, has scope to improve as well. Even at 29 years old, I think he'll be going for a good few more years. So Heung-min Son aside, he's a standout player out of those lots. So let's assess Moura and Bergwijn now. Lucas Moura, let's start off with him. Lucas Moura is a player I really like, yeah? I really do like him. As much as I kind of criticise him at times, I do really like him as a player, but he frustrates me so much because he's got so much quality, he's got so much ability, but then he just goes vanishing and he just goes missing in so many games, and we can't have that.
Do you think he goes missing?
Yeah, I think he goes missing. I think he does, and I think that when you look at his performance against Man City, what a performance he put in, right? Absolutely unbelievable, one of the best players on the pitch. But then the game after that,
which one?
We could hardly see him. Against Wolves. Against Wolves, he was absolutely anonymous.
They were suffocating us that whole game though as well. We were playing with all our players were playing with their backs to goal. So you can't really blame him for that one.
Okay, fine, you can't blame him for that individual game, but this is a problem that Lucas has had pretty much his whole Spurs career. He'll have a brilliant performance, and then he'll back it up with an absolutely awful performance. He's nowhere near consistent.
Yeah, but do you know who else is like that?
Who?
Harry Kane. Harry Kane will play a brilliant game. He'll be the best player on the park, and then he'll play a game like against Watford where he was the worst player on the park.
I kind of disagree. I disagree with that. I think that.
So I do think that it's a lot of players are like that though. A lot of players will have a good game, and they'll have a stinker. That's for me, that's natural. But if you look at the Watford game when Moura came on, I thought he was superb. I thought he made the difference.
He was superb.
I really thought he made the difference.
He was superb. But the thing is with Lucas Moura, I just get so frustrated for him because he should be having more good games than he has. He should definitely be having more good games.
But also, he doesn't get enough of a run. I mean, he only came into the side under Mourinho like the last third of last season, and then he gets little bit parts, and then he gets puts on the wing. Well, we know that's not his preferred position. He plays better through the middle and like a number 10, but he never really gets given that license to do that. So he's often playing these little bit part roles. He might get a game here, then he's out for a few games, and he's meant to come back in and somehow set the world alight. And it's difficult to get a little bit of a run going like that. But even despite all that, I still think he makes the difference, even when he's frozen out and comes back in.
Who would you say is our best right winger and our best left winger? So left winger Son, right winger Moura, right?
I would still have Moura ahead of Bergwijn. Yeah.
So if you play a front three of Kane, Son and Moura, you look at that and you say Moura's the one that you can upgrade on. And that's why I'm saying like Moura for me is not on a world-class level like Kane and Son. And that's why I'm looking at it and being like Moura for me is great to have as a squad. I definitely don't want to get rid of him. I think he's brilliant to have around the squad. I think he impacts seasons really well. He's got really good quality about him, but I just feel that he's
You wanted to get rid of him last season.
I just feel like he's upgradable.
I don't. I still think we've got a lot to get out of him.
And Bergwijn, young player, got room to improve. Hasn't kind of fulfilled his potential just yet, but I definitely see stuff in there, and I think that for him to come in and to learn off players like Heung-min Son, like Harry Kane, even like Lucas Moura, I think can only be good for him. And I think his confidence is starting to come back now. He started this season pretty well, in my opinion. Hasn't found that end product like you mentioned just yet. But I think, like you say, I think that if one or two goals goes in, I think you'll see a different player in Steven Bergwijn. I think that he's definitely got a lot of attributes that can supplement our attack.
But you can see how he's more frustrating than Moura.
Yeah, but the only reason...
But he's younger.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the reason. Yeah.
Because of his age, I think he's got time on him.
That's
like
why we're more lenient.
Moura should be the complete player, but he's
by his age.
Player by
yeah,
now.
I see what you're saying now. Yeah, that's why when people say, "Oh, he's so frustrating," but then like Bergwijn will just carry on doing what he's doing without any end product. But then it's almost as if Spurs fans don't really say anything. I know it's a few comments of people starting to say it, but I think you have to take the context of their age into account. And like we're hoping that he's going to develop, so we're being a little bit more lenient.
Exactly.
I guess
That's
the reason, isn't it?
That's my reason. Yeah,
I like to just be objective and trying to take age out often, but yeah, I guess you could use that as a context. Yeah.
All right. So you're going 4.5.
And Hill, do you want to talk about Hill quickly?
Bryan Hill, absolutely brilliant. From what I've seen so far, I completely agree with you. I think he's a star in the making. I loved watching him play in both games, to be honest. In the first game, he kind of went vanishing. He went vanished after about 15, 20 minutes, and he was drifting out of position, and it was all a bit of a mess. But those first 10, 15 minutes, he was unplayable, absolutely brilliant. Touches to the ball, finds those little pockets of spaces. I mean, he just can't get tackled. I mean, they just can't tackle him. In the second game, he impacted that game for all the time he was on the pitch. It was a much better performance than the first game. So, look, Bryan Hill, I want to see him play in the Premier League before we kind of make a proper judgment on him. But from what I've seen so far, definitely the signs are good, and I do think that he has a lot of star quality about him. Yeah.
That's why I kind of put the bumps up the score, because I see so much in him. In the same way I've seen other younger players, and I've put my faith in them, and I believe he's going to come good. For me, he's like a little mini Cruyff. The way he moves.
Not putting too much pressure on him.
Honestly, no, it is a lot of pressure. But I'm telling you now, that guy he's a superstar in the making, and that's I could eat my words on that one, but I really do see that much in him.
All right, let's move over to the strikers. Last position, we've got Harry Kane and Dane Scarlett. Obviously, Heung-min Son can fill in there as well. We've got John's given 2.5. I've given 3. And, the only reason why I've given 3 is because Harry Kane, one of the best strikers in the world. Dane Scarlett, up-and-coming striker. Probably not just ready for the first team just yet. So we've got one recognised striker within this whole squad.
Yeah.
We've got Heung-min Son who can fill in there, but I've never been that confident of him playing up top, to be honest.
Yeah.
I much prefer him coming in off the left. So I think we've got one proper striker in Harry Kane, and yes, I know he's an absolute gem of a striker, world-class striker, definitely one of the best strikers in the world. But we're just very, very short. And if Harry Kane gets injured,
that's the reason I gave it so low. Because if he's injured, what do you do? Scarlett's he's wet behind the ears. He hasn't tested him, haven't even scored yet.
Yeah.
And we're putting him in as a second string. It's just not good enough. It's not strong enough. I mean, if you look back at the Harry Redknapp era, you had Robbie Keane, Jermaine Defoe, Peter Crouch, Pavlyuchenko, and maybe a Gudjonsson or someone else as well. I mean, that's the strength and depth of the strikers that we had.
Yeah.
Just putting all our hopes on Harry Kane, when I think he's only had like one season where he hasn't got injured or something like that, which was last season. So let's just say that he gets injured, then what? Scarlett up front? I mean,
no, they'll play Son up there. Right?
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? It's like, but if we're just going on this, just on how we're judging it here, then just on out and out strikers, it's just really not good enough. We really needed another striker. We really did. Even if it was just like kind of a bit of a journeyman striker. Like we did with Llorente back in the day.
Yeah, definitely, we should have.
We needed something like that just to fall back on. The fact that we're just pinning all our hopes on Kane is threadbare, and I hope that doesn't come back to bite us. I really don't.
It's like we've gone back to that only Kane, because we went through a few seasons of just having Kane as our recognised striker. Then we got in, a few strikers. Vincent Janssen was there. Carlos Vinicius was there, and now we've gone back to having no
even if it's a Vinicius,
again.
I mean, he's going to take the weight off for the games like the Europa style games where Kane doesn't have to play in those games. And I actually think Vinicius did a job last season, and I think he scored 10 goals, didn't he?
Yeah, he did what was called of him.
And that's what you need. You need strikers that can be those fringe strikers that come in and play the lesser games. It takes the sting out of players like Kane, you know? Because if you go like a goal or two down and you're chasing a game in a cup game, Kane's going to have to play. And then he's gonna wear him out for all the other games that we're playing, and especially if the fixture list gets congested, then it's going to affect his performances in the league. Let's say so. That's a position that I think. That's why I gave that like a half score, like a 2.5 out of 5, because I just think, as good as Kane is, I just think there's too much pressure on him. And with Scarlett there, yeah, he could come good, but I just think he's a green banana. Do you know what I mean? I think he will come good. He might come good, but at the moment it's completely untested. Do you know what I mean?
All right. Well, that is our squad overview so far. If you were gonna rate the whole squad out of 5, what would you give it?
The whole squad. You go first.
I'm gonna go
3.5. Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
We agreed in the end.
3.5 because we're short in some areas. We've got good players. I think we've got good players and untapped potential in this squad. Players like Tanguy Ndombele, Giovanni Lo Celso, Dele Alli. You can potentially say that right now, seeing as he's had a few years off. We've got a few untapped potentials, and I think that if Nuno can get a tune out of Ndombele, Giovanni Lo Celso, Dele Alli, all these players this year. Even Japhet Tanganga and even Dane Scarlett, these players, these fringe players, if Nuno can get a tune out of them, I'd potentially put it up to a 4.
Yeah,
but right
that's
now,
how I feel about it.
3.5.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely room for improvement, definitely room for growth with our squad if we can keep them injury free, and if some of these players can really come into the side and hit the floor running. Especially if Hill, can you imagine if Hill comes in and absolutely sets the league alight? Then we're talking like a 4, aren't we?
Yeah.
Potentially more than that. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
All right, let's see how this develops. That is our squad overview. I want to know your judgments in the comment section below. Rate this squad out of 5, and also rate each position like we have out of 5. Let's see how you compare to us. So like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.